Are just joining us, my name is Carol. I am the Marketing and Customer Communications Manager at ExperiencePlus, and I'm happy to have you join us today and learn all about our Gravel Explorer tours. Our owner, Mariana Price, is going to jump in here as soon as her Teams starts working.
I think it's working now. I think I'm here.
Okay. So we might have her disappear, but cross our fingers that she doesn't. And I'm going to let you take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Carol. I hope you all can hear me okay. And welcome. My name is Maria Elena Price. As Carol mentioned, I own ExperiencePlus with my sister, Monica. And I'm really excited to have you all here to learn about our Gravel Explorer tours. We're going to move pretty quickly through our intro slides so we can get to the meat of what we will be talking about today. So the first part, I'm just going to give you a little introduction for those of you who don't know much about ExperiencePlus so that you know a little bit about who we are, how we run our trips, and what is so exciting about this new trip style that we launched about 4 years ago. Well, we tried to launch in 2020, but we actually launched it in 2021 and 2022. This is a brief agenda about what we'll be talking about. We have 4 trips we're going to be talking about. John will be talking about our tour in Croatia. Carol will be talking about our tour in Italy. They both have been on those respective tours. And Luis, who is one of our tour leaders and tour managers out of Portugal, will be talking about the 2 Gravel Explorer tours we have in Portugal. And then we'll have time for some questions, we hope, at the end. So a quick rundown about ExperiencePlus. We started as a company in 1972 when my parents had this crazy idea to bike across Italy. They had done it previously, and when my mother, who is Italian, had graduated college, they pedaled from Pisa to her hometown over the Apennines, and they thought in the 70s how could they get back to Italy to meet her family, because by then they had married and actually landed back in the United States. And so they sold 24 people on 4 different trips to ride across Italy with them. And they got back to Italy, and the rest is a little bit of history. Our entire family life has been coming back and forth between Europe and the US, helping people bike throughout the world now as we expanded to over 20 countries. This year we have trips in Europe, which is one of, where most of our trips are, but then we also have trips in Chile, Argentina, and Cuba during what the Northern Hemisphere winter months are. So that's kind of how we diversify across the globe. We have a U.S. office based in Fort Collins, Colorado. That's where I'm based. That's where Carol is based. And our European operations, which is actually a separate company, but is based in Italy, is where my sister runs the operations, and that is where John is based, and where Luis visits when he has to go pick up a van and bikes to get going on his trips. Really quickly about how we run our trips, because that's an important part, I think, about when if you're comparing trips across other companies and other guided tours, the things that we really work on is designing trips where you can ride at your own pace, where you can explore, where you can stop, and where you can really get to know the places you're traveling. That's really important to us. That's the foundation of how we really think about all of our tours. Our goal is for people to have their own schedule during the day and to be able to really experience all of the special places and people that live wherever they're exploring. And then, you are traveling with a company that is doing all the logistics for you. So the goal is also for you to be able to do that without any worries and without any stress about where to pedal, where to eat maybe for dinner, where to sleep. We have all that figured out. And we also, of course, move luggage. For our guided tours, we have guides, but for our self-guided tour, we actually do all of those same things, and you can also do it at a self-guided pace. And those are some new trips we just posted this year. But our bread and butter and core is guided tours. We have some incredible tour leaders that we work with. We particularly concentrate and really work hard to get local tour leaders. That's one of the things that really, I think, puts us apart from many other companies. Most of the time, the tour leader that's going to be on your tour, the 2 or 3 tour leaders will be from the country you're in or have lived there so long that they're practically natives. We have 4 different tour styles. Well, these 4 are the ones we won't be talking about today, but I'll just talk briefly so you know the landscape of our tour styles. Our classic tours are the bulk of our trips. They come from the original trips. We run those tours. They're guided. They're throughout the world. They tend to be 7 to 12 day long trips. They have 2 to 3 tour leaders. We navigate with chalk dust arrows. That's a unique marker of our classic tours and our bike and boat tours. And we really work hard, like I said, to design a trip so you don't have to get into a van if you don't want to, that you can pedal from point A to point D as much as possible. That's true on about, I would say, 90% of our trips. Our bike and boat tours are very similar to our classic, but you're on a boat for a large part of that trip, probably 7 or 8 nights on the boat. And that's ideal because you don't have to pack and unpack. It's a fabulous way to see a place. Of course, you have to be on water for those, so we do those on canals and on the Adriatic and the Mediterranean. And then our expedition trips are long, multi-continental tours usually, or multi-country tours that sometimes cross continents. And on those tours, we have a variety of navigation options, usually with arrows, sometimes with not arrows, depending on the place. And they tend to be anywhere from 18 to 35 days, depending on where you're going. And then this year on the ExperiencePlus site, we actually launched self-guided tours that we run out of our Italian office. Self-guided trips are, as it's named, you don't have a tour leader from our organization, but you have routes, you have luggage transfers, and you have hotels fully booked. You can pick your own dates. It's much more flexible. And because, of course, you don't have tour leaders, the budget is actually a little bit more accessible. So we're really excited to have launched those this year. But what we're here to talk about today is our Gravel Explorer tours. Like I said earlier, we launched these trips, or aimed to launch these trips, in 2020. As we all know, that didn't work out much for travel that year, so we tried again, and we actually launched them in 2021, and I think 2022 is when we got going. We have 4 different itineraries, and our aim with these tours was to create a trip that wasn't constrained by what pavement was required. That was where our classic tours had always been, was only on pavement. And we know there's so many destinations that you can travel to that have great gravel roads that we really wanted to explore those. There's a lot of reasons people are trending towards gravel, whether it's not wanting to ride on busier roads, or if it's because you really do want to get off the beaten path. And so we were really excited to launch these destinations and these tours. I'll talk briefly about the bikes we have. We have a variety of bikes depending on where you're going on the gravel tours. We have decided that because of the variation of off-road options, that the hardtail mountain bike is actually one of the best standard bikes that we have available for all tours. We also have e-bikes. They tend to be the e-hybrid bikes, so they also have some front shocks on them. But we have a new fleet of gravel road bikes and gravel e-road bikes that we're excited to have launched starting last year and into this year. Those right now are available pretty much, I think, in Italy. Maybe some of the Portugal tours have them as well. So so you can see that on each itinerary, it has the specific bikes that are available to that tour. And then in the Azores, as you know, the Azores are an island off in the Atlantic. We are not shipping bikes. We considered it, but we are working with local providers. And so what you see listed are the options from the local providers for bikes that are available on the island there. And if you have questions about that, you can always ask Luis. So with that, we're going to get to the actual, itineraries. We're going to go day by day. I'm going to pass it over to John, who's going to talk about the Croatia tour, and then we'll go to Tuscany, and then we'll go to Portugal in the end.
Great, thank you, Maria Elena.
No problem.
Yes, I'll talk about the Croatia tour in particular, but I'd like to start with a video that we made the first time we ran this Croatia tour, about the Explorer tours. That it explains really well, I think, what they're about. So as you see this, it's a little bit under 2 minutes. We'll watch that, and all the scenery is from the Croatia tour. So I'll cue that now. All right, so where is this Croatia Gravel Explorer? It's on this peninsula that you can see right next to the left of the Sea of Croatia. The word Croatia there. And here is an overview of some of the highlights. And we start with a red loop at the very bottom of the map you have on the side of the screen. We start with 2 nights in Rovinja, 2-night stay. We have two night stays on this tour, which is really pleasant, relaxing. And then you can see we kind of alternate between inland tours or inland days, ending up on the coast. Then we cycle quite a bit on the coast, and then we go inland again. We then end up near the border with Slovenia and do a loop ride back to the coast from there. And then on the final day of cycling, we cycle through 3 countries. We start off in Croatia, cycle a good portion of the day in Slovenia, and then end up in Italy. The cycling is largely on paved, low traffic roads. About over a third of the cycling though is on unpaved roads, and those are a blend of unpaved roads or even some paths like you see in the picture there. And then I'll just go through a few slides of some of the scenic points that we hit on this tour. This is Rovinja. It's interesting, this part of Croatia. It's so close to Italy. Most of the towns also have an Italian name. So it's Rovinjo in Italian and Rovinja in Croatia. On the loop ride, we go to this beautiful little town called Bale inland. That's just full of these tiny little pathways. The one of the high points of that day for me is just getting off the bike and walking through these little pathways through this ancient city. We also go to the town of Portugal, which is, as you can see, it really extends out into the sea. This is another place where you'll want to get off your bikes and just lose yourself wandering through the town. Motovun is another highlight of the trip. It's beautiful seeing it as you come into town. Nice climb up to the hotel, which is right in the center of town. You can see that that tower. The hotel is right underneath that. Very, very comfortable hotel. And then the scenery from the top of Motovun is also stunning. This is just an example. Every direction you look from there is beautiful. In order to get there, we see this Paransana trail a couple of times, but the main day is when we're going to Motovun, and this is rails to trails basically, and the bridges like this, and just cycling well off the beaten path. Gorgeous scenery that whole day. And then, as I mentioned, on the last day, we have the 3 countries. We end up in Trieste, in Italy, another town well worth spending an extra night. I would recommend also. Very interesting, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city. The food available to you in the Istrian Peninsula is wonderful, very fresh. Truffles are the Motovun that I just mentioned a minute or two ago is famous for its truffles, but you find them all over the place. Great seafood, of course, next to the coast. Meat dishes, olive oil. People refer to this area as kind of a Croatian Tuscany, and that's true. The olive oil, also the wines in this area you have the international varieties of wines that you find in a lot of places like Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, but there are also some local wines that you don't find in other places. And I really like this photo because it shows this red soil. Also, there's often where this Malvasia is grown, it's grown in this soil rich in iron, and the color contrast is amazing. So from here I'll turn this over to Carol, who will talk to you about the Tuscany tour.
Thanks, John. All right. Tuscany. Tuscany is a place that most of us have heard about. It's been made famous in lots of ways. But one of the things that we do with this Gravel Explorer tour is that we get to spend time on the white roads of Tuscany, the Strade Bianche, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about what those white roads are as we go along. So this is a 7-day, 6-night tour. We start in Siena, which is in this inset map in the upper left corner, and we take kind of a U-shaped turn down southeast. We are 2 nights in Buonconvento, and then we come over, do a loop ride. Then we are in Pienza for 2 more nights with another loop ride, and then we make our way up to Cortona. This tour is level 3.5, and what that means is that basically it's for riders who prefer hilly terrain. And even though as you look at this, the mileage on those days aren't really long. If you're new to off-road riding, what's important to know is that it takes longer to ride, say, like 10 miles on gravel than it does on pavement, especially once it becomes hilly. So the miles aren't extremely long on these days. The last day of 39 miles from Pienza to Cortona is our longest day, but that has 43% unpaved roads. So you're mostly on the pavement. So what are the white roads? Well, these are ancient dirt and gravel roads that crisscross the Tuscan countryside, and the white color comes from limestone gravel. These roads were originally constructed to connect rural villages, farms, towns, and really facilitated the movement of people, goods, livestock. There's something like 600 or more miles of white roads throughout Tuscany. So the amount of terrain that's available for riding is incredible. But one of the really interesting historical aspects of the white roads is that some of them are part of a historic pilgrimage route called the Via Francigena, which led pilgrims from Canterbury in England down to Rome during the Middle Ages, starting around the 9th century and into the 13th century. And so these roads are used today still for modern pilgrims who are making their way along the Via Francigena to Rome. And you actually will see signs that indicate the direction of the Via. This particular map here, or photo here, though, shows a different sign of La Roica, which is a bicycle event that started in 1997 to celebrate the history and culture of cycling these white roads. And it really was meant to promote the preservation of these routes so that they don't get paved. And if you are a gravel fan, as I am, these are about some of the best roads you could possibly ever want to. Like, they're like pure gravel riding as far as I'm concerned. I want to just walk you through some of the highlights of the tour. We begin in Siena. This is a UNESCO World Heritage location. It is a gorgeous hilltop town. It is the most it's the most touristy of all the places that we visit on this, and over tourism in Tuscany is something that we're really sensitive to. And that's one of the things that's great about this particular tour, is that it gets you away from the crowds. It really gets you into hidden villages and small towns that you otherwise wouldn't see. But if you arrive in Siena a day early, you can go up into this tower, the Torre Mangia, and this photograph on the left-hand side I took from up above. The views are just stunning. I happened to do this tour in May, and it was absolutely as green as this is. My background is the green from the tour itself. And I love riding in spring. I just want to put a plug in for doing spring tours because the colors are fresh and just deep and rich, and the contrast with the white roads, the flowers, the blue sky, it just is a feast for the senses. And so the landscape is something that figures just prominently into this tour. And the Crete Senese, and I apologize, Elena and John, for my Italian, but I'm doing the best I can. But the first landscape you experience as you leave Siena heading south is these formations called the Crete Senese, which actually just translates to clays of Siena. And these landforms, as you can see, kind of look like badlands. They've been grown over in places, and others are completely barren. But it gives the terrain a very lunar feel. And this road here, this is the very first white road that we went on this first day of riding out of Siena. And it was just really exciting to drop into that and just see how the road just crested the ridgeline, and you could just see for miles. It was just beautiful. And our destination was Buonconvento. This is a town that we stayed 2 nights in. It really was an important stop on the pilgrimage route on the Via. It connected Rome with all of Northern Europe, and it was, being a strategic location, it made it a huge center of trading. And today it's doesn't quite have the trade and commerce that it did back in the day. But it's a wonderful place to stay. It has a very small walled old town, which we stay almost right across the street from. And then we take off on a loop ride into the surrounding area. A highlight was the stop at the Abbey of Monte Oliveto Maggiore. It is a still functioning Benedictine monastery. It's only open certain hours of the day. We were there to be able to visit and have a walk through the cloister, which has unbelievable frescoes. And there's a really fun wine library, if you will, down in the basement. So we don't have a ton of cultural stops along the way, but certainly churches figure prominently into the landscape. And so the other thing, though, that this area is really well known for are its vineyards. And we don't ride up to the hilltop town of Montalcino. You can see it. But if you were, you could definitely do that if you're eager for more miles. But we pedal through lots of vineyards along the white roads. And these vineyards are, the Montalcino vineyards in particular are famous for the production of the renowned Brunello di Montalcino wine, which is composed of at least 70% Sangiovese grape, which is what you're seeing here. And these grapes are just grown throughout the area. And we did, we stopped at Italy's first all-female run winery on this tour. We just made our own tour, if you will, and paid for a visit, and it was really exciting to learn about that particular vineyard. So Pienza we are at for 2 nights, and this is just a really beautiful hilltop town. It was originally called Corsignano, but then it was Pienza actually means the town of Pius. Pius II, who was a pope, wanted to transform the town. It was his birthplace, and it became the model of the ideal Renaissance town. And so it is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's recognized for outstanding universal value, and it really represents the first application of the Renaissance humanist concept of urban design. And that's one of the things that is really fascinating about this area, is that so much of what we're riding through is also called the Val d'Orcia, and it's known for what you think of as quintessential Tuscan landscape with cypress trees, hilltop towns, hilltop chapels. This particular view that you're seeing here is the Chiesa della Madonna di Vitelletta. It's one of the most photographed scenes in all of the Val d'Orcia. And this landscape was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for outstanding cultural value. So why is a landscape recognized? Primarily because of the work that folks did during the Renaissance to really work with the land to create an environment that established good land management practices, a lot of architectural design that was that flourished. And so it's really just so beautiful. You get to ride through these alleys of Cyprus. If you've ever dreamt of doing that, this is the tour for you. And again, the colors in spring were absolutely magical. So yeah, our tour comes to a close in Cortona. This was made famous by Frances Mays in her book, Under the Tuscan Sun. And it's a really wonderful place to end a tour. Yes, it's up on a hill. Yes, we ride up the hill, but the road is actually pretty gentle with lots of switchbacks. And I know I didn't really talk about food and wine, but indeed, that's a big part of this tour. The pecorino cheese that's known out of Siena and Pienza are always available. And I'd say that, if you're going to take this tour, it's the motherland of gravel riding. So I highly encourage you, if you've never done any off-road riding and you're wondering what might be the first tour to take, this is one for you to keep in mind. And with that, I would like to bounce it over to Luis.
Okay. So let's see if I can get a hold of this thing working. Hello, everybody. Before I start my presentation, I see a few names on the list here that I cannot ignore. So I'm guessing Ian and Heather are the couple I met from Scotland. And Ian, you did address the haggis on one of the dinners, right? Am I right? Let me know on your comments, please, if you are the ones I'm talking about. Also, Jeff, thank you for coming. Jeff and Zia, big hug to Zia also. Bjorn, my friend, thank you for being there. I know that you've done one of these tours before, so I'm guessing you're going for Azores this time. The lovely Linda and Roberta, thank you guys for being here. Give a hug to Chris. I will not go by. And Jeffrey Weinstein. This is a long time ago name, but I still remember you, buddy. So a big hug to you all, and thank you for being here. And now starting my presentation on Portugal, and I'm going to present to you both Explorer tours we run in Portugal. For all of you that never considered Portugal, it was not on your radar, why Portugal is a question that I ask often when I'm doing my tours. I am a guide. I am one of the guides that will be working with you for sure if you come and do any of these tours. And why Portugal? I guess I looked up all the international references that you guys may have. So you do have the beaches, you do have the Fado. You can actually see the football or soccer is there because we have one of the most international players. Magellan, you have to know Magellan because everybody knows Magellan. The port wine, these beautiful tarts here on the top that are so famous, the Portuguese pastel de nata, that if you don't know, lucky you, you'll be finding it out if you do come here. You can see on a little map on the left side where Portugal is, like on the edge of Europe, really the last thing before we start the Atlantic. And this is one of the reasons why the Romans in the past called this place the end of the world, for good reasons though. So why Portugal? I think you'll have your own reasons to come here, but if you don't, give me a call. I can find some for you for sure. To the tour that we have. The first one that was created in Portugal, as Elena was saying, in 2020, never ran because of COVID, and we all know that story, is the Algarve Gravel Explorer Tour. The Algarve Gravel was probably the guinea pig, the test subject, whatever comparison you can make to the first tour that we ever ran, and it's probably the most worked upon, the most developed, the most matured tour that we have when it comes to gravel explorer type tours. It is a tour that will run throughout the coastline of Portugal, the southern coastline of Portugal. One of the reasons why most people in Europe know Portugal is because of that southern coast. And it seemed to us that knowing that is a very intense region for people to come and visit us, it would be nice to show them something else other than just the coastline and the beaches and the caipirinhas and the umbrellas in the sun and the red skin that everybody gets when they come here and try to get a tan in 20 minutes. So yes, it is true that we're going to see some of the coastline in this tour, but we're going to see unexpected coastline. You can see the anchors there, and those anchors exist. There's a graveyard of anchors in that point, and that graveyard exists because there was a big tuna fish industry in this region, and we fished out all the tuna of the ocean, so we don't really have as much as we used to. And so all the boats that were docked because of the non-existing fish then gave up those anchors, and those anchors made the graveyard. So you can actually see the impact of overfishing in that really nice graveyard by the ocean. Actually, there's a beach next to that place. This other second picture you can see there is one of my favorite days on this tour. This tour starts really at the edge of Portugal and Spain on the east side, and we go across the entire length of the country until we get almost to the West Atlantic. But in the middle, there's this little town. The name is not there because it's irrelevant and you will forget about it, but it's a 4-letter town called Alte. And in Alte, as we get into, and this is going to be a difficult day because, it's going to be a challenging day because you're going to have a lot of off-road, beautiful off-road, in places that you won't see a soul. So you'll be living your bicycle ride in the middle of nature with no distractions, with no noises. And the reason why I love this place so much is because when you finish that ride and you're so at peace with yourself, you get to this little town, which is no more than 2 streets long. And they have this beautiful swimming pool, which is made with a river. So that's the river that you're seeing there. And as you enter town, you can get into the river and cool down because normally, when you get there, as Carol was saying, days are pretty long on the bicycle when you're doing off-road. Not because the distance is a lot, but because you take more time, you ride slower, you see more of the scenic rides, of the scenic landscapes you have. You engage more. You have the little sheep crossing the road, which is actually the next day to that, we go through a place where there's always sheep, and we always have this shepherd sheep, shepherd dogs interaction there, which is pretty nice to be able to see. Okay, the itinerary, as I was explaining earlier, we start in this little town on the left, day one, Vila Real de Santo Antonio, big name, small town. And then we'll go cycling across the entire length of the country, and we're going to end up in the last town over there, which is Lagos, also very famous for a couple of reasons. One of them is the beaches in the cove beaches in the cliffs. But in the meantime, all the cycling is for one reason only, and that's why you have the picture number 3 there. It's because you have to have a good time. You're not there to suffer on the bicycle. You're not there to do kilometers or do training. You're there for that exact reason that you see there, for, have a good time, have fun, connect with other people, get to enjoy the scenery, get to enjoy the people, the food, and all of that. You get done on the way, because there's really not a very interesting book written just about the top of the mountain. It's the way to get there that really matters, right? Well, as my 2 colleagues before me mentioned in their presentations, food is important. And of course, Portugal may have the best food on the planet. I know that Italy claims that, and Croatia also, for good reason, I must say. But that's because Croatian and Italian people don't know Algarve and our food. Food is really important, and the reason why I chose to put this picture there, it's because Algarve is known for a number of items, and carobs. I don't know if you know carobs, but if you don't, you may. Figs, oranges, almonds, olive groves, and a lot of cork trees. Now, the fruit is always better when it's stolen, and that's what we tell people. Don't buy the oranges, because we're going to cross a lot of the fields with all of these fruits, depending on the season that we're in, right? So we always tell people, steal the oranges. They taste much better. And it's okay. Like, we're talking about massive orange groves. The owners don't mind. It's something locals do. But people come from your part of the world so politely that they steal the oranges from the ground. And of course, you don't eat the oranges from the ground. I just found it very, very polite of this lady that she was not wanting to hurt the producer of oranges by taking them off the ground. Of course, she took another orange from the tree. It was a super fun experience that she realized that she could steal an orange and get away with it. Okay, terrain difficulty level, how are you going to feel about this? And this is probably the question of all questions when people come and ask, can I do this tour? Is it, within my grasp? I understand that the fear of getting into a tour that may be not your most common normal way of riding your bicycle, which is off-road, on-road, on a mountain bicycle, or a gravel bicycle, not in a road bicycle. That can present some challenges. And of course, being off-road can be scary if you haven't ever been off-road. Is it all flat? No, of course it's not all flat. We have ups and downs. I mean, how boring would it be to be all flat? Unless you're in Holland, and that's in a different department. But this is a 2.5 tour. You can judge by comparison, looking in the website, if 2.5 is within your grasp or not. I would say for most people, yes. But I would also say that if you think that's how strong you are, that's going to take you throughout the day, then think again, because it's how strong-minded you are that's going to take you all the way to the end. If you really want to make it there, you will find a way. You will find the energy. The legs will keep up. And that's a test and tried experiment over 10 years of guiding that I've been doing so far. So it's really up to you if you want to make it or not. We are there and we have your back. Just make sure that you do what's comfortable for you, and don't have to fear about getting lost, because one of the big pluses of this kind of tour is getting lost, as long as we more or less know where you are. But getting lost is part of the fun. I mean, you'll never find anything new if you don't get lost first. And we'll be around. We will always be around. And so the only thing we do ask of you every day at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day is just find yourself in the middle of the road and go with it and enjoy the ride. Don't worry about anything else. And we'll be around to make sure that if anything happens, we'll be there. Okay? So it's just difficulty level sometimes is more what we create for ourselves than what it's really on the road. That said, aside from describing a tour, for those of you that have never done a tour with Experience Plus, or even if you did do a tour with Experience Plus, there's a few differences on this kind of tour that you should be aware of. They're all explained on the website, but based on many conversations I had over the years with people that get to the tour, they did have this information available, but they chose not to access it. So a day on tour pretty much is like a good day on a bicycle when you're home. You get up, you have your food, you get out, and you have your route that you explore. You stop or don't wherever you want to stop for food, picnic, coffees, whatever. We will point out some cool spots that you can use. But you do have the thing that Maria-Hélène was explaining, which is the guided independence. And that guided independence is assured by you having your own GPS. So making sure that you're comfortable with any guidance system and that you understand Ride with GPS, the app that we use to more or less give you all the information you need, also maps and directions if you really want it. And then this is a curiosity-driven exploration kind of tour. You have to want to visit things. You have to want to get off track. You have to want to see over the next hill to really be able to enjoy and bring more of what there is available. Because if you just follow the white line of the road and you get to the next hotel, and what stories do you have to tell, right? So the idea is just you get to be curious, you get to be a kid again. And I've heard this sentence more than once over the past years. In this type of tour, the Explorer, I mean, people feel like they're a kid again, just having fun. And so that's what we're looking for, okay? And then you meet something new, or a new town, a new hotel, a new restaurant every single day, okay? So are you the explorer we are looking for to this tour? We're taking applications. On the left, you got the more or less the guides that will do almost all the tours. There are more guides than these two. It's me and Artur on the right side. Just make sure that you tell us what you need and we'll be ready for you, regardless the type of bicycle, the type of ride. The one thing I would say, but not especially to this tour, is if you do have food preferences, make sure you check things before you come. Do some research about the food we have in the country. So because when you have your dinners on your own, you more or less know what to expect, okay? And if you don't trust me, you can ask Bob. Bob is the guy with the glasses in the right side, in the left side of the picture there, the third picture. And Bob is coming for the second time doing that tour this year. So he must know a thing or two that he can share with you guys. Okay? So this is Algarve. I hope I was not too fast for you. Oh, another thing, yes. Is there anybody else here that I see a couple of names that I may identify or not? So is there anybody else that I didn't mention that it's here, but just using a alias or something? Please let me know. Okay, so for those of you that love Monty Python, this will make some sense. So we're going to keep on talking about Portugal, but we're going to move out of the mainland and we're going to go into the Azores. And the Azores is actually an island situated halfway between Europe and America in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We found that out about 500 years ago, and we've been keeping it for ourselves. But the island is a true paradise. One of those long lost that you can still discover almost as pristine as it was. It's just a fun fact of Azores is that only about 3% of the area of the islands is actually used by humans. Everything else belongs to nature or cows, but we'll get to that. Okay, Azores by its own self is a marvelous experience. I mean, there's nothing quite like it. I've done a number of tours in the company. I have never done anything quite like Azores. It's different in any way. It's the nature, the roads, the people, the food, the altimetry, the vibe of the tour, the weather climate, the weather patterns are completely different. Everything, people there are just different. And different in a good way, actually, in this case, because the other case wouldn't really be good, right? So this is one of those experiences that you will carry for the future. I can promise you that much. We start that tour in a little town on the southern part of the island, and the island is like a sausage-shaped island, kind of tilted, but the sausage shape. We started on the south side, a little town, and we wanted to start there because that was the first settlement. When people found about Azores, when the first discoverers set foot on Azores, that was the place where you see this anchor. That was the place that the first discoverers first made land. So we're starting our tour on the very same place that the discoverers actually discovered, made land, whatever, disembarked in Azores. So it's a pretty nice town. Now it's one of those towns that, people that know about it go there. The ones that don't know about it, they don't. It's a very small town. They have nice cookies there. One of the things that it's all over Portugal. Of course, when you heard me talk about oranges and figs and almonds, everything spells pastry, right? So in Portugal, everything spells pastry. And you should expect that wherever you go, whichever island, whichever country, whichever city in Portugal. Okay. Past that, why are Azores so unique? Well, the volcanic active sites still there, the very basic, old-looking, primordial-looking, almost sites. I mean, it's pretty unique to go into these places where you can see smoke coming out of the ground. I know that you have a few of these in your country, probably bigger, but these are just in the middle of the ocean. This island was created by a volcano. So it's a volcano that grew out of the water and created the island. And it's still creating the island. It's very active in a few places still. So much active that you can actually not only walk around it, as you can see there, very close by, as people actually use this, you see these little mounds on the ground, they're pits, and those pits are for people to go and cook food. So you actually save a lot of on the gas bill if you live in Azores, because you can cook your food underground. And yes, there's a special kind of cooking that most people would like there, and of course that you will try. Aside from then all the lagoons and all the older volcanoes that are still there, that are created, and the dramatic landscape with the layers of the eruptions in the past that give you this color and ancient looking feel to the place. That's really something that transports you, I mean, to another dimension when you're really there. There's a part of the island that we go to. It's more to the northwest of that sausage, which is basically made of forest. It's old-looking forest. It's got the biggest fern trees I've ever seen, ever, ever, ever. If you can imagine a fern to be as tall almost as your house, that's how tall they can grow. And this is like something that you can see out of a Jurassic movie, almost nothing that you can find in any other continent. It's pretty impressive the way you see. Plus, you just go around the island, and every time you turn here and there, you get these beautiful waterfalls, or the tea plantation that we're going to see. Like it's just mind-blowing. Plus, the traditions on the island are so local because people don't move. I mean, we're talking about an island the size of a shoe, and people just don't move from one town to the other. So they create these tight-knit communities that are very, very local. Of course, inbreeding may be a problem over the years, but they just keep where they are. And so they keep their identities very, very strong. And they have this way of speaking that's very unique. And even us Portuguese speakers that should speak the same language, we struggle when they kind of speed up. So you can imagine that, there's a lot of when they're talking about whatever they want to talk about. Of course, coastal views come with a package because you do have, you're in an island and you're going to circle the island most of the days. And of course, the rural landscapes. And the rural landscapes will be marked by a very omnivorous presence. Cows are all over the island. I mean, they rule the island. There are more cows in Azores than there are humans, for good reason, because there's a lot of dairy, there's a lot of good cheese. For me, the best cheese that Portugal has is made on the island. Of course, the fresh food is also there. You're in an island, you're gonna have beautiful fresh fish. I mean, there'll be fishes there that you probably haven't had ever before in your life. And the fish is really the catch of the day. It's none of that, it's not frozen, doesn't come from another country. It's the catch of the day kind of thing. And so I can guarantee that you'll be surprised, astonished, delighted, unwilling to leave. About food, though, the struggle that we've been having for vegetarian and vegan diets is that, these guys are okay with meat and fish. They do struggle a little. It is possible to find some options, some very interesting options when you go to the bigger towns. But if you travel to the smaller towns, again, do some research, see if you can find ways to complement whatever you need on your diet if you're going to come and you need a vegan or vegetarian diet. Okay? The very first image on the left side is the most famous dish on the island. It's a stew. It's a meat stew. Actually, there is this also as a vegetarian solution, and it's called a cozido das furnas. Cozido is the Portuguese word for, it's the Portuguese word for stew. So it's a delicious meat dish, or of course, vegetarian dish if you try to, or if you choose to, okay? Cycling the island is about 350 kilometers. The elevation, as you can see, 7,000 meters. This is a lot of meters, right? So we do have about 50% trails, 50% off-road, 50% road, both tours that I've talked about. But this tour is actually a level 4 tour. So it's a bit more demanding tour. How do you make a bit more demanding tour, a more accessible tour? Easy, you get an e-bike. And e-bike, I've done that tour with e-bikes and regular bikes. If you are a very strong rider, yes, a regular bike is really, really up to the task, as long as your legs are. If you are not, if you're feeling under the weather, if you feel like you haven't practiced enough this year, yes, an e-bike is a good solution, because you actually take the edge off the concern, the worry of, can I keep up with the rest of the group? Can I keep up with my wife, my husband, my friend? They're coming on an e-bike. Should I take a normal bike? It's all decisions that you have to take, but based on what my experience was, yes, an e-bike is a good friend to have, because there's no day that will not have a few hills. You can see the details of the hills, the altimetry profile. Again, don't get scared, because I'm going to tell you a story about these hills. And the story is, when I was doing this tour for the first time, I knew the tour. I knew all the hills. The hills were there. There was no way I can flatten those hills. And I was expecting at the end of the day, people to come and say, oh, the day was beautiful and magnificent, and we had the scenic, and we had the food, and we had the cheese, and we had, the experiences on the way, but the hills were just killing me, or it was too difficult, too high, or the first hill or the second hill, whatever. I was expecting hill comments. And day one came and went, no hill comments. The day one was, you go 100 meters out of the hotel and you're in a hill for a few kilometers. So I was expecting hill comments, and the hill comments were not coming day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4. I didn't ask, but I realized what it was. And somebody actually said this: the hills are the way for you to pay everything else, and it's worth it. It's worth it, and because it's worth it, you don't complain. Because it's part of the magic, it's part of the atmosphere, it's part of your accomplishments. So the hills are just a part of the landscape. And if you want to see the island as it is, as remote as it is, as out there, I mean, this will put the back in the back roads, these roads here. We're really talking about places that nobody goes to, that we don't see anyone. And And these people were there, these customers that you can see there. That's John with the shirt. And his wife came with an e-bike, and he was not complaining, and he was not the strongest rider. And John was just saying that, I mean, the hills are the way to pay for all the things that the island surprises you with. And so that's, for me, what the difficulty level became. Is it worth it? Definitely it's worth it. One of the big highlights of the island is the tea. Actually, the biggest tea plantation in Europe is in that island. You can see a nice picture of it, but you can go there and see it for yourself. You can see the machinery at work. It's all very transparent. The tea is actually, they offer you tea for free as much as you want. So you can go there, you can stop, you can have some food, you can have all the tea in the world that you want. And you can buy or just can leave, whatever you'd want to do, but you can actually be in that atmosphere, which is kind of different because I don't know if you guys ever saw a tea plantation and a tea factory, but it looks like it's still running as it was in the 1800s, and it's pretty unique. So all about sustainability, and these guys know what they're doing with that. Of course, cows, as I've mentioned before, are a part of the island. There's no way we can go. There's no place we can go that you don't hear the cow, smell the cow, look at the cow. Everything is made for cows in the island, it seems, rather than for humans. And they do rule the island. They're pretty peaceful animals. They roam around everywhere. Every piece of land that they could turn into cow pasture, they have. So you can see all these intricate designs, patterns in the landscape made by farmers for the cows. These cows have the best view in the planet. Some of us would like to have a room with a view of these cows have from the pasture. And these guys actually make most of the delicacies of the island when it comes to pastry, ice cream. They produce milk. For those of you that I didn't know about this until I went there. They produce milk that is naturally without lactose. So the cows have been selected in a way that they don't have lactose in their milk, and that's really, really something that I didn't know about. So it's everything made for cows, and then humans can use the island too, more or less. Okay. The end of the tour. Well, the end of the tour is in this little place that you can see. We call this the Seven City Lagoon. And the Seven City Lagoon is actually a place full of charm and history and some legends. And then you can choose if you want to believe the legends, the science facts. But these two lagoons are actually one lagoon, and you can see that they're connected in the middle. What you can see there is a bridge, so it's not a barrier, it's just a bridge. And one of the lagoons is green, the other lagoon is blue. And you can know this, and for certain that science will expect you to believe that this lagoon green had to do with algae and the other whatever. But really, really, the fact is that this lagoon is made by the tears of a crying green-eyed shepherd that lost his blue-eyed princess love that cried the other lake. So pretty nice story to end the tour, right? Okay, Azores is here, is waiting for you to make more memories. Make sure that as you cycle the island, that you can feel the gratitude of what it is to enjoy and be there in those atmosphere, in those moments where you can take it all in and indulge in whatever the Azores has to offer, because they do have a lot to offer for the curious minds. A few pictures that actually made my day when I was there. The ferns, as you can see, little churches that you unexpectedly pop out of the of nature. One of the most beautiful towns on the third picture. Most towns will have a big river going by, but this one just seems like a postcard. There's a million different flowers in Azores. You cannot believe how many pictures I have from the island. It's by its own self a library. The nicest waterfall that you just turn this corner in the middle of a place where you don't really know it, just in the middle of a road, and you turn a corner and you see this beautiful landscape with this waterfall and everything arranged around it. It's really unexpected, the surprises that Azores offer. And then the cow pictures, of course, the cow pictures are a must. I don't know if you can see the bearded trees. The bearded trees are something unique. I've never seen this, so maybe you have, but I haven't. there's these trees, very old looking trees growing in the island. And of course, the team that will probably guide, which is me on the left and Loic, a Belgium guide that's doing this tour with me most often. And Loic is actually a Belgian guy that knows more about Azores than I do, because he actually worked and studied there for a long period. So he is a very well-informed guy, besides being a great guide. I guess that is all. Thank you for joining in, and I'll be available
Thank you,
for
Luis.
any questions. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Luis, for your passionate storytelling. We can take the tour leader out of the field, but we can't take the stories out of the tour leader. So thank you all for bearing with us. We have a couple of more notes, and then Luis, there was one question if you want to answer in the chat about the Algarve trip versus the Azores difficulty. If you want to answer the via text and chat, you could maybe answer that question. Somebody was comparing, saying how much harder is the Azores to the Algarve. Very quickly here as we wrap up.
Yes.
We just wanted to give you an overview. Well, Luis, can you do it in the chat while I finish up the presentation? Maybe you can just write the answer in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you. So just to give you an overview of how you can find out more and learn more about all of these tours, you can find them on our website. I think we'll also send an email with direct links to all of the itineraries and the dates that we have posted. We have posted 2025 already, so you can see those all online. And we're short on time for questions, but we'll be sending out a recording, and definitely feel free to email us and to ask us any questions directly at carol@experienceplus.com or info@experienceplus.com. We can always answer any of your questions about any of these itineraries. We're really excited to be embarking on this new style. It is, I think, a great new addition to our portfolio. Really helps us get off into places that we maybe wouldn't have gone before. And we'll keep learning more about how to bring on new itineraries. And we do that best by sending out emails. We do have a weekly news update. You can also request to just get information about new tours, but this is a QR code to sign up for our weekly news update, or you can go to you can just email us and say, please just send me information on your events and various things like that. So Jeff is asking if we have more gravel rides in the works. I need to look at my list for 2026. I do believe for 2025, we did not launch any new ones. We do have some planned for 2026, I believe, and we're just now finalizing those plans. So Jeff, if you have any particular places you're intrigued about, feel free to drop a thought here if you want. Because we're always interested in where you guys want to go. So we sometimes will develop based on what we hear other people excited about. All right, since we're tight on our time, I think we're going to close up now. I think maybe I'll leave the chat open for anybody who does want to ask a few more questions for another 2 or 3 minutes here. Carol, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, and definitely feel free to email me or info@experienceplus.com. And if you have questions for Luis or for John, we can certainly connect you with them as well. Luis, as you can see, has a hard time answering questions and talking. So you might not get what you want out of him, but John, he'll talk your ear off for forever. So you got to be really careful about it.
You got a good story though.
Yeah.
You'll get some sort of an answer, Luis, from you.
No, I think, I just want to say one final thing. We're calling these Gravel Explorer tours, and I think Luis did a really great job of explaining the Explorer part of the tour. These aren't gravel rides, and I think the Tuscany ride is as pure of a gravel ride as you're going to get compared, like if you ride gravel in the United States, that's the kind of riding that you tend to do, is what we do in the Tuscany. The others just have a variety of off-road opportunities. So it's a really amazing blend to be able to get off-road and be in dirt and be on a bike. If you have never ridden off-road, I'd say don't be afraid. It's a wonderful way to see the world. And
Yeah.
that's all I have to say.
And you can always practice in your own backyard to start with.
Sure.
We have a great primer series that Carol wrote up on our website. Maybe we can send that out too with the recording.
Oh, that's a good
talks
idea.
about
Yeah,
how
I'll do
to
that.
how to also just think about gravel. You know, how do you think about the bikes or the roads and things like that? So excellent.
All right.
Well, thank you all. We hope to see many of you out on the road.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. Thanks, Luis.
Ciao,
You're
ciao.
always welcome to come.
Ciao.